Hey y'all, Fred here. Thanks so much for joining me today. We are going to continue our series of the big box of knives that our buddy John sent us to review here. I think John's got way too much time on his hands. Y'all know he's recovering from some serious kind of back neck surgery. I think he just sits on the internet all day long scouring to find like the best knife deals out there going. So this is another one of them. This is a replica knife of a Kershaw Flyby. John got this one on AliExpress for $9.80. So we're going to take a look at the good, the bad, the ugly, see what we think about this knife. Before we get too deep in here, if you would hit that thumbs up for me if y'all know that I'm just going to deliver some quality, because that really helps the channel, and that way you don't forget if you bail out early. Otherwise, if you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe, join a little band of renegades. We'll take a quick peek at the box that these come in. Standard fare. This is not made in the USA in any way, shape, or form. How ironic that it says here made in China and here made in the USA. I'm not even sure if the original real Flybys were made in the USA or China. I think these were also all made in China. Maybe it was designed in the USA and made in China. Anyhow, nothing in the box other than some plastic there, typical fare for the boxes as far as those go. Let's do some size comps before we get too deep in here. Always like to compare against the PM2, in this case the 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗋𝗯𝘆 and the Para3. You can see this is shorter than both of those knives, although it has considerably more cutting edge. It's actually pretty close in overall length to here. There's a perspective difference, although I'll tell you the Para3 is just a hair longer. However, you're getting much more cutting edge on the Flyby here. All right, we'll also throw out the Civivi Vision FG, and why not go with the 𝗥𝗲𝗽𝗋𝗆. You can see, again, shorter than both of these knives, but probably just a hair more cutting edge by the time you line those up like that. It's going to be pretty similar if you factor in the belly, but you're looking at, you know, more of the raccoon size knife than the larger size knives, right? Final, let's do our dollar bill test. We'll line it up. I'm going to line up the back of the scales here so you can see it's pretty comparable there. I'll do one more comparison because I've got it here, and I'm going to make some other comparisons as well. So I just did a video. You guys probably saw this one already if you're watching my videos. On the Bel Air. This is another replica of the Bel Air, very similar in size and shape. Like if you were going to get one of these, you might not get both. I don't know. That's a tough call. Very similar in overall kind of blade shapes, although they call them different names. This is obviously the Axis Duralock. This is a frame lock. This one is assisted, whereas the Bel Air is not assisted. So some comparison and contrast on those. Let's take a quick peek at the specs. I'll bring those up on the screen here. This is pretty true to the original in most of these specs, but it differs in a few significant ways. So full open, 7.1 inches. The blade is right at 3 inches, which again means that anybody in one of those kind of states can't actually use this knife if they would have just shortened it by a few thousandths of an inch. Everybody could have enjoyed this knife, but so be it. Blade thickness on this one is where we get one major difference. This is 107 thousandths, which is pretty thin and slicey on that side. The normal one is 120 thousandths, so that is a noticeable difference. The other difference is going to be in the handle thickness. This one has a thinner handle at under 4/100ths or 4/10ths of an inch, I guess, whereas the other one is 425 thousandths or a little over 4/10ths of an inch thick. So that's it's a noticeable difference in size there. Otherwise, it's the same kind of black finish blade, very flat grind, a little bit of saber grind if you want to call it that. The handle on the original and this one are both steel. So they have a PVD finish on the steel on the original. I don't know what the finish on this is. I'm going to say that's probably true to form. This is not a paint. I can definitely see it's not a paint. It's some kind of really hard impregnated coating into that steel there. The original comes in D2. I have no idea if this is in D2 or not because it's, you know, under $10. But for an under $10 knives, it's not uncommon to get D2 steel these days, right? D2 has come down in price, so this very well could be. The original says it's 59 to 60 on the HRC scale. Of course, this one has no rating at all. This one comes in at the same weight as the original, which is unusual given that the scales on this are a little bit thinner and the blade is thinner. So hard to say how it came in at the same. I'm not sure about all that. This is a liner lock. We'll take a closer look at that in just a minute. Seems to be pretty solid on that. The original one was $88. So that's why I think this is one of those China knives that even Kershaw made. But since they were discontinued, so this model came out in 2023, yep, and it was discontinued in 2025 this year. So you can now pick one of these up, the original in D2, for 35 bucks. If you look around on the internet, I found some listings for that. However, John got this one at $9.80. So, you know, is this potentially a real one that they're just trying to get rid of? I doubt it. I think this is still probably a factory replica model, given the fact that the specs are not even close to the original. No, this is definitely a factory or a China replica. Again, we saw this is under 10 bucks. I did measure behind the edge, 17 thousandths, pretty slicey on that. So yeehaw for that. All right, let's take a little closer look at some of the features on this thing. As I mentioned, steel scales. You do have a captive pivot. It's got the D-shaped ring on the inside that is captive, T6 on the body, and pocket clip, T8 on the pivot screw. Yeehaw for that. There's no back spacer. You've got typical barrel standoff spacers there. You do have lightly chamfered edges around everything, so there's nothing particularly sharp. Even the lock bar up here is not too bad. That's where you can get sometimes some sharp edges, and even that's done pretty well overall down throughout all of that. So pretty well, I guess, finished out, I guess. I'm a size large glove if you want to get your size comparison, so probably an XL would fit okay on here. You're not going to be able to use this up here as that's just going to be uncomfortable as some kind of forward finger choil, and you can see there's no room to get your fingers, so there's no choil up here on the front. The lock mechanism is pretty darn solid. Let's put a little light on that. You can see it's locked up at, 50+% of that blade. I've done a spine whack. This thing is not going to break free. This is very solid. And you got a nice thick, the scale is holding it pretty solid there. So no issues on the lock. The action is good. As I mentioned, this is an assisted knife. And it launches out like, you would expect that they do. However, you can close it. It's obviously not going to drop shut, but you can close it easily enough with just a thumb right there or a finger, and it pops out every single time. Very solid on that, so no issues there. Smoothness, I'm going to say pretty smooth. Deployment, you've got the one mechanism. You've got the flipper tab. That's it, and that's all you need, and that's typically all you get with these assisted knives anyhow. Blade shape. So they call this blade a modified Wharncliffe. Now I can see that. I can see, typical Wharncliffe, although Wharncliffes, often don't have a point that should be a little more smooth here, and it would be maybe a little straighter here. But I can see that being a modified Wharncliffe. However, this one they call a reverse Tonto. So you tell me how this gets to be a reverse Tonto and this is a modified Wharncliffe. I think they're just making names up over there. Anyhow, it is what it is. It's a pretty good knife. It definitely is EDC friendly. It's got a long, pokey tip there. It stays pretty thick out to the tip. That's another good feature for an EDC. You don't have to worry about some light prying. You got a $10 steel knife. You're not going to worry about that. You can pry some staples out if you needed to with it. Don't advise it, but we're going to do that, aren't we, with our $10 knives. But otherwise, good shape on the blade in terms of easy to get those draw cuts when you're opening your packages or whatever. Even stick it in there and open up a little mail with it. That's what we all do with our knives, isn't it? Pretty comfortable in most of the positions. I'm going to say this pocket clip didn't really cover that. Typical Kershaw style, it's extremely deep carry. Like the pocket clip clearly sticks out beyond the scales on here. And the tips are a little bit high, and this one is a little squared off. So I can see that becoming a bit of a snag magnet right there. Certainly easy in and out of the pocket. This one's pretty stiff, but not overly stiff. I'm going to say that's pretty good stiffness. But that high tip right there, got to be careful leaning up against car doors or whatnot. That's absolutely going to scratch some stuff if you're not careful with it. So it is what it is. Just be aware of that. It is not, however, reversible, which is an interesting choice on that because the others that they put out are in fact reversible. So I guess it was just the design with the steel frame. They didn't want to make this one reversible. But overall, it's a nice, again, EDC friendly. This is made to be your EDC style knife. We have no idea what the steel is, but again, I'd say there's a decent chance it's a D2. It's probably also a decent chance that it is not a well heat treated, but who knows? We'll see when we get to the cutting test. There's no jimping anywhere on this knife. So that's something that is a little bit different. So the original knife has some jimping on the lock bar and some jimping on that flipper tab right there up on the top, and this one has no jimping at all. That is not jimping, that's just a little bit of the paint that is worn away on there, the finish. So that's another, I guess, departure from the original. I will mention that the coating, whatever they've done, this PVD type coating, again, it's not a paint. It's definitely impregnated into the steel itself. It's not that slippery. It's not as slippery as you would expect. Again, with no jimping anywhere on the knife, is that going to be slick? I mean, if you have really wet hands, this could be potentially slippery. But with dry hands, I'm going to say there's whatever the surface coating is, it's got just enough of a little bit of a grip to it that I'm not particularly worried about that. All right, did it come sharp out of the box? That's always a big question. Let's see here. I'm going to say, yeah, it looked like there was a little snag in the middle maybe. Yeah, right there in the middle, but you can cut slow and smooth right past it, so that's pretty good. I'm going to say that's at least a 9.5, if not a 10. I'm just a bit of a snob. Most people would give that a 10. So they did a pretty good job on that. Did they get the grind right? So you can see here, pretty good, pretty even most of the way across that blade. Yeah, I'm going to say this one's ground a little bit better, a little bit more evenly than the 𝗙𝗆𝘆𝗯𝘆 model that we looked at, so yeehaw for that. Ergonomically, well, let's look at the centering before I move away. Centering is pretty much dead on. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out the best way to give you a view of that. There you go. I'm going to say that's pretty dead centered, so you got to like that, especially in an assisted knife. Ergonomically, it's a great size. You know, it's the perfect medium-sized EDC knife. It's on the thinner side. I don't care as much myself personally for the thinner type of knives. I just find them to be a little less comfortable in work, but some people like that specifically because they want a thinner knife. There's no real rounded edges, although there's no real sharp edges either. It's not going to be like the most ergonomically comfortable knife that you've ever had. That pocket clip does poke into you just a tiny bit here on the back. I don't know. We'll see if that becomes a hot spot. I could definitely see how that lip that sticks up right there, that could become an issue. So we'll see about that. Otherwise, the action is good enough. It's definitely not going to be a fidgety type knife because it requires, you know, conscious effort to pull and close that blade down. But it launches out every time without fail. It's got a solid knife. No blade play, up or down, left or right. Nope, all good there. No pivot lash, and then detent is non-existent because there's no detent ball on this. It's held in by that assisted spring mechanism there, but it is solid. There's no blade play right there, just in case you got one at some point that did have it. Overall, I'm going to say this is a pretty well-built knife. I mean, for a replica under 10 bucks, assuming the steel holds up like, you know, I expect it probably will, it's worth $10 at least. This is another one of those knives you can throw in your pocket. You don't have to worry about it. You can beat it up. You can drop it on the ground. It's got steel scales. You don't have to worry about that breaking. It's always going to launch out like a rocket. It's got a nice, long, thin, pokey, sharp tip, which is great for most of our EDC style tasks. Got a good long 3-inch blade. It's a good blade to handle ratio. So overall, the weight, you know, what do we say? 3.4 ounces. So it's fairly light in the pocket as well. So it's hard to go wrong with this knife. I guess it's hard to have too many complaints about this knife. Curious if any of y'all have tried one of these. Maybe you've gotten the real one. How did that hold up? Or anybody who happened to buy one of these $10 versions, and how did that hold up? I always like to hear from you guys what kind of experiences you've had. Otherwise, if you haven't already, hit me a thumbs up. Help out the channel. I do appreciate that very much. I really do. It helps out a lot. Hit the subscribe notification bell if you're not already subscribed. Otherwise, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. We'll see you soon. Y'all take care.